And welcome to our May 21st. Today's the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. So good to be meeting on this day. My name is Debbie Douglas, and I'm the chair of TCHC's Governance, Communications, and Human Resources Committee. Before I begin the land acknowledgement, I must say that it has been good news that we've been hearing across Canada from First Nations. You may recall that there was lots of debate about whether two Indigenous women who were murdered and whose bodies were discarded in a dumpster, that the bodies have been found. The families have some closure, and we are so thankful for political leadership that we are seeing in Manitoba. I think it speaks to how following through on commitments to First Peoples really does make a difference, not only in First Nations, Métis, and Inuit communities, but throughout Canada. So very glad to be able to share that news this morning. We're joining you today from the land here in Toronto. I often talk about it as the dish with one spoon, Wampum Bell Covenant, because I love that image of the dish with one spoon where everyone gets to share, recognizing that they must leave something for those who are coming behind. Toronto is the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge all treaty people, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generations or in generations past, and those of us, including my people, who were brought here involuntarily, particularly through, brought here to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. We pay tribute to my ancestors of African descent. So we have a number of reports that will be coming forward today, but before we go there, let's turn our attention to approving the public agenda. Are there any items that people, directors would like to hold? Vinita, yes?
I believe some are held for presentation, but 8, 9, 10, and 12, please.
12. Thank you. And 8, thank you. Anyone else?
9.
Yes, 11 is a deputation from Catherine. Okay, so we're holding 8, 10, 11, and 12.
One item was missed, 9, 8, 9, 10.
Oh, you're holding 9 as well, sure. Any declaration of conflicts? And I want to remind directors, even if you don't see a conflict by looking at the agenda, you can always declare a conflict as the discussion begins if something comes up. Okay, so just so we're all clear. All right. So confirmation, what do I do? So could I have an approval of the public agenda, please? Thank you, Vinita. Second. Thank you, Marcel. All in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you all. Okay, we're moving to number 8. Nobody held number 6, unfortunately. Who is, oh, there we go. Yeah, whenever you're ready, it's fine.
Good morning, and thank you. We're pleased to present the People and Culture 2024 Annual Report, and I'm joined today by Kelly Schultes, who is our Director of Talent Management, and we're just going to get the presentation up on the screen. There we go. So throughout 2024, People and Culture Division continued to focus its efforts on driving key organizational priorities that will enable our organization to meet the strategic goals and objectives. And we're focused on building and sustaining a culture of trust and confidence in people and culture, in the division, in the programs, in the policies and procedures that we're responsible for, and overall in creating and maintaining a positive employee experience that will drive engagement, performance, and retention of a high-performing workforce. In 2022, the People and Culture Division developed our own divisional strategy, and our efforts, our initiatives, and our actions are guided by the areas of focus that are identified in this strategy, and they include 5 key goals: enhancing employee and candidate experience, fostering climate of inclusion, belonging, trust, and confidence, deploying talent acquisition, onboarding, and retention strategies to meet our organization goals, driving people and culture excellence and innovation, and investing in our employees' development and wellness. So everything that we do in the organization aligns with these areas of focus. And we're proud of a number of initiatives that our team is responsible for leading and supporting across the organization, and there's a wide breadth. So whether it's Service and Appreciation Awards, some of these are highlighted in the screen, Orange Shirt Day, supporting our United Way campaign, or frontline staff training, which I'll talk a little bit more about later, as an example of an initiative where we partner with our business to drive an outcome that supports tenant service delivery and our overall organizational goals and objectives. Over the next few slides, I'll just highlight some of the key divisional accomplishments that were achieved in 2024. And then we'll be happy to take any questions that anyone has. In our division, we are structured in 4 key areas. So starting with payroll, pension, and benefits, I like to call these the unsung heroes because we never talk about them unless there's a problem. And generally speaking, we don't talk about them a lot, but I do want to highlight the excellent work that the team does in ensuring that our staff are paid accurately and on time every 2 weeks. But of course, there is a lot more that goes on to making sure that, that this happens. And in 2024, in particular, there were some key initiatives that the team was also focusing on. One of them is almost coming to fruition, which is the completion of an RFP process for a payroll and HRIS system. This is the first time in many years that we have gone to market for a system. And what we're looking to ensure is that going forward, we have a high-performing system that meets our organizational needs, that enables us to modernize, that enables more integration across the pieces of work that we are responsible for, and that is linked with other areas in the organization. That has been a big lift, but a very worthwhile exercise in taking the time to understand current state, what we're doing well, where the areas for improvement are, with some key objectives to how we want to strengthen in this area going forward. Another key milestone in 24 was the transition of all of our employee record filing from paper to electronic, utilizing SharePoint. And one example of how the payroll benefits team supports organizational key priorities and initiatives is the key role that the payroll team played in supporting the operations geographic realignment that resulted in us needing to reconcile and finalize employee work locations as a result of the changes that happened through this initiative. On our learning and org development team, this is another example of a team that gets involved in a wide array of initiatives, from very specific, more traditional HR type initiatives to broader ones that are linked to our service delivery model and, again, ultimately serving our tenants. In 2024, we continue to deliver culture model workshops across the organization. This is really about embedding our culture model competencies and bringing them to life. So we meet with teams, we focus on sharing success stories of the things that our employees and our workforce are doing each day that help demonstrate how we're living those competencies that we have identified are key and critical to our workforce and what we want to be known for. The Learning and Organization Development team also partnered with our operations colleagues and our labor partners to develop and deliver our semi-skilled plumbing training program. This is a wonderful initiative showing a number of things. Firstly, a focus on a cost-effective strategy to bring in-house the ability to do a lot of our maintenance repairs of what was previously outsourced through vendors. Secondly, a demonstration of investment in our employees and our workforce by strengthening their skills and expanding their skill sets and the types of work that they're responsible for. And absolutely a linkage to excellence in tenant service, because we know that our tenants are going to much more welcome having our employees step into their homes to address their needs than having a random vendor who may be a stranger to them. And the team is involved in numerous other operation-specific trainings. So we exist and we exist to service the organization to make sure that we're meeting the goals and objectives that are set across the organization. In addition, in 2024, next slide, the organization development team was responsible for implementing our employee engagement survey. We are just in the process now of completing employee focus groups, which will ultimately lead to the development of employee engagement action plans across the organization. We undertake the surveys, which this time around we had a 73% response rate, which is a very solid response rate. And we're benchmarking against results from the prior survey, which was in 2021. And the idea, of course, is we don't do the survey just for the sake of doing a survey, but we're doing the survey to really understand what are the experiences that our employees are having, what is the effectiveness of the initiatives that we have implemented and the action plans that we implemented the last time to drive change and address improvement, and to help inform us on areas of focus going forward. We also implemented an enhanced recognition strategy in 2024. We developed a multi-level leadership development strategy, which we are now rolling out, so targeted at multiple levels of leadership, from new leaders and emerging leaders to seasoned leaders. And we are standing up a Change Center of Excellence in 2025 as a result of a lot of prep work done in 2024 to get this important area of focus up and running, as it has been identified as a gap in the organization. Moving along, in our talent acquisition team, they were very busy filling 565 vacancies across the organization. That's a combination of permanent, temporary, and seasonal, keeping with our average of 10 weeks to fill vacancies, which is a pretty admirable pace. We have strengthened our ability to attract candidates. This was a bit of a challenge for us, definitely in 2022, but we have made strides here, of course, and market changes as well impact this. And we have supported hiring across the organization for a variety of positions listed here: youth community workers, interns, special constables, leadership positions, frontline jobs, apprenticeships. Equity, diversity, and inclusion remains a priority area of focus for our team. We have an equity, diversity, inclusion strategy developed a couple of years ago, and 2024 included continued focus on key elements, including a lot of education. And we utilize different approaches with e-learning opportunities, lunch and learn seminars, covering an array of topics from human rights, anti-racism and discrimination, lunch and learns on disability and accessibility. In 2024, we were aiming to launch our diversity survey to be aligned with our employee engagement survey as well. We had a little bump with a vendor, but we were able to launch first thing this year. We are in the final stages of also getting that analysis done arising from the survey, and our focus in 2025 will be on developing employee engagement roadmaps that basically take into account what did we learn from the employee engagement survey, what did we learn from the diversity survey, and collectively build divisional action plans as well as corporate action plans that are based on the feedback that we've gleaned from this area. Moving on, labor and employee relations. A lot of preparation in 2024 to get us ready for collective bargaining, which we are currently in collective bargaining right now. With 2 of our unions, we have advanced more with Local 416, but we'll be heading into bargaining with Local 79 in the near future as well. We also focused our efforts on ongoing support for people leaders. That is the role of the labor relations team, to work with our people leaders across the organizations, help to navigate the grievance process, providing day-to-day support for investigations, discipline, grievance management. And finally, but certainly not last, is the work of our health, safety, and wellness team. And we have kind of identified 3 streams of work that the team focused on in 2024. It was a big year for a lot of policy review. There are a large number of policies that support the health and safety work of the organization, and it was an opportunity to review, update, and create a proper and effective review schedule for these policies, and a lot of training to update and ensure that our employees are up to date on relevant policies that exist in the organization, with, of course, a strong focus on ensuring that our employees are working in a safe environment and have the tools and supports that they need. We also worked very closely with our labor partners and our joint health and safety group, our joint health and safety committee, to advance health and safety in the workforce, and this continues to be an area of focus for the team. And finally, the disability management and wellness is another stream where we not only support based on what is happening, but really try to take a proactive approach in identifying trends, identifying areas where we can strengthen through new initiatives, enhancing supports that are available. So 2024 was a busy year, and as we look ahead to 2025, one of the most important things that we are doing in people and culture in our broader corporate services portfolio now, and frankly across the organization with the adoption of the strategic plan, will be to develop divisional business plans and work plans that align with our new corporate strategic plan. And that is a work in progress right now, but we have identified these areas of priority for the people and culture team in particular. We know that as a result of the RFP process, which will wrap up soon, we will have possibly a new human resources information system, or even if it is the same system that we're currently on, we will have opportunities to look for enhancements and ways to better utilize the technology. So that will be an area of focus. Implementing the employee experience action plans, which I just referenced, coming out of our engagement survey and our diversity survey. We'll be looking at developing a new hire and employee exit survey, all in the spirit of continuous improvement. What can we learn? What can we learn that we're doing well and where we want to focus efforts? Leadership development will continue as an area of focus. As I mentioned, collective bargaining, very important, prominent activity this year, and once collective bargaining is complete, it will be a focus on implementation of those collective agreements. A very important area of focus will be ensuring employee health and safety in the workplace and really focusing on the vulnerable and exposures that our staff have, particularly in some of our buildings. And again, continuous improvement, streamlining, modernizing, utilizing technology. So that is a snapshot of people and culture, and happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Committee members? Finita?
Thank you, through the chair. It's an excellent presentation, and I feel benefited from having met with you earlier this year, so got a bit of a sneak peek on where things were developing. A couple questions around the EDI piece, and I'd say the maturity level of the organization. There's reference to data-driven insights, so the survey that went out to staff at the beginning of the year. But how does the team actually feel they'll leverage and implement those data-driven decision-making into policies? Like, was there a strong response? Is this a participatory labor environment? Does it touch across the entire vertical of the organization?
Thank you, great questions. So we had a 50% response rate on the survey, which is a decent response rate in order. Of course, it's voluntary, which as it should be, and we're continuing to learn how can we encourage even greater participation, because the voice matters, and that's what we learn from. The intention absolutely is a top to bottom. So we're looking from input at all levels, and we really do take a holistic approach. So some of the work since the start of implementing our EDI strategy has been applying that EDI lens to our existing policies. It's not about, one-off and disparate initiatives that aren't part of the rest of the organization. So Kelly is our director lead, and Jamie Kramer, who is on the line as well, is our senior consultant. And we have taken the time to look at key policies across the organization, applying that lens and making adjustments where possible. Coming out of the survey and the information we gather and through the focus groups, it's really about practical and tangible actions and changes that we need to make to embed the way we do things, because that's really what this is. When we talk about a culture of inclusivity, it really is how do we do things and how do people feel about the workplace. So I'm not sure if I fully addressed that, and I don't know, Kelly, if you wanted to add.
Yes, through the chair. Barbara covered a lot of the work. We'll receive a lot more feedback and recommendations from the vendor that we're using for the Workplace Diversity Census and Inclusion Survey. And with those recommendations, we'll embed those into those action plans. So we're bucketing it under the employee experience. So it's going to look at the engagement survey and then this survey for EDI, and then be able to really embed the work within divisions.
So that ties into my second.
Okay. Go ahead.
My second question was actually related to health and safety and the intersection of EDI. So has the organization evaluated implementation of the psychologically safe workplace standard? The Mental Health Commission of Canada's Opening Minds program has excellent employer supports to help drive that conversation, and they're specifically targeting trades-oriented labor groups. So there's great opportunity and resources out there, but you've noted it in your deck. Yeah. This is a topic that touches horizontally and vertically across the organization, but the health and safety piece has a unique dimension where you can tap in from an EDI perspective.
Thank you, and we will be making sure to have that those linkages are identified.
Have you given any thought to how you can increase participation rates?
Thank you, Chair. Great question. So yes, and I think one of our biggest observations is that overall there was pretty strong response rate in most of our divisions. Our biggest challenge is our largest division, which is operations, and understandably so, because you don't have people that are sitting at a desk in front of a computer, so it makes it more challenging. So if I shared the stats from division by division, we're well over 70% in most of our other divisions, which is excellent. But ops is also so critical to us understanding how we can shift and make changes. So we thankfully had that feedback before we went and did focus groups, so we could still have another opportunity to go and engage the workforce in operations, if not through the survey itself, through engagement, through focus groups, and through other initiatives. So this will not be a one-time only. Certainly for the next time around, we know we will need to do differently, and we will, to figure out better ways to get completion of the survey. But that is the primary area of the challenge.
Thank you. Any other questions? Colleagues online? Not seeing Ziva, is that, yes?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily have a question, but just more of a comment. The presentation was definitely well done. You all did highlight 2024 and the work that you have done thus far. I've seen an improvement when it comes to just overall interaction with the staff at TCHC. They're a lot more welcoming. They're more engaged. So the work that you're doing in creating a healthy workplace and providing people with spaces to learn and grow is reflected on what we're seeing on the ground when it comes to the staff. So that's just a comment that I would say.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Our staff colleagues are smiling. Anything else? Marcel?
Yeah, I just kind of want to echo what was just said. You do notice the environment between tenant and staff has shifted, and it's like to a positive perspective, I guess, from where I sit to look at things. But I really think that while the report and the presentation was really good, it's a good thing because there's like that dark cloud is kind of lifting, and it's a good thing for people to be able to start just talk, right? And there doesn't seem to be that wall that goes up all the time. So there is a definite change, and I appreciate the hard work that you've all put into it.
Very good. Thank you all. Can I have a motion to receive the report, please? Thank you, Marcel. Thank you, Benita. All in favor? Yay, yay. Thank you, Gord. Okay, employee networks.
Yes.
Right back at it.
So I'll just maybe start with a couple of opening comments and then happy to take any questions that you may have or direct the questions. Again, I'm joined by Kelly for this item as well, and Jamie Kramer, who is really the hero on the work that we're doing in this space. And Jamie Kramer is our senior consultant. She's on the line. But we are bringing this report to Governance Committee as a result of a conversation that we had at a past meeting where there were some questions asked about what employee resource groups exist. And so, the report before you provides a summary of the resource groups that exist today, but also talks about the supports that we are providing to those groups now, because in the past they were kind of somewhat on their own, and we've tried to formalize and provide a level of support corporately through the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion team in terms of guidance, in terms of some budget for events, in terms of advice, and sort of ensuring that the needs that the groups are identifying, that there's a place for them to bring them to have action taken. So we're in the early stages, but we're also looking at how do we make sure that these employee needs, resource groups have the right support through executive sponsorship. What does it mean to be an executive sponsor? I'm not assuming that people know, and offering training in this area. And we'll look to expand employee groups if that's what our employees want.
Very good. Thank you. Comment or questions?
Thank you. You actually indirectly answered most of my questions there, but it was on the topic of the executive sponsorship and the success and how it's going. It seems from the report that it started out as more, employee resource groups started out as more grassroots, and now you're looking to formalize structure. The key challenge that most organizations face at that stage is diluting the impact of the ERG by way of having too much formalized structure. So at least in the global DEI work that I do, it's a middle out approach, but you need to have a pipeline for visibility and for budget. Otherwise, it can really turn upside down and start to be counterproductive to business goals and to meeting the employee needs. Yeah.
Through the chair, thank you. I think that is an excellent point and well taken, and will be noted, because of course what we want to do is provide the support and provide the opportunity for meaningful engagement that the groups want to have in the organization without turning it into an organizational function. So thank you.
Yeah. Without being directive. Anyone else comment? Thank you for that report. Okay, motion to receive. Thank you, Vanita. Thank you, Marcel. All in favor? Yay, yay. Moving on to number 10. We have a deputation on number 11.
This is our first iteration of the report back through Governance Committee on our performance with respect to our tenant human rights complaint process. I mean, generally, the report provides some details as to the quantity and quality of the nature of the response that we provided to complaints that we've received through the process, as well as insight into the nature of the complaints that we're receiving themselves. It provides some data as to complaints with respect to the various categories of complaint and how we try and impose key performance indicators to indicate how we're doing as far as responding to those complaints. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Katie Douglas, who can provide some more specific comments in relation to the information that we're reporting to the committee.
Perfect. So as you can see in the report that we've submitted, just to provide some context, in June 2023, the Ombudsman published an investigation report into our tenant human rights complaint process. 14 recommendations came out of that report. One of them was to implement a formal tenant human rights complaint procedure. And so as part of our broader human rights project that we had already sort of begun when the Ombudsman report has come out, we have implemented what is now an interim tenant human rights complaint procedure and will become, with some minor changes, a final tenant human rights complaint procedure, hopefully sometime in the coming months. And we implemented that at the beginning of February 2024. So the data in this report goes back to February 1st when we implemented the report. So it's not a full year of reporting, but it's 11 months. So it's important to note when you're looking at the numbers. That procedure sets out a process for tenants to make human rights complaints and sets out the process of how we investigate them and then how we provide a decision and ultimately a resolution to the tenant for whatever the complaint is underlying, whatever the issue is underlying the complaint that they've made to us. So it's quite a detailed procedure. It allows for, gathering more information where it's necessary, meeting with the tenant if necessary, and then the process of us investigating those complaints, and then what our decision ultimately looks like, how that's delivered to the tenant, so on and so forth. So the attached report details essentially the quantity, so the quantitative numbers, how many complaints we've received, from where they came in the organization, and then sort of the nature of the complaints that we've received. So these are all complaints about our obligations under the Tenant Human Rights Code. Under the code, there is a set of protected grounds that tenants identify with: age, race, disability, gender identity, sex. So it essentially, the report lays out on what ground we received a complaint. And then it also goes into sort of what the nature of the complaint is with respect to what area of the organization they're complaining about. So whether or not it was a transfer decision, whether or not they had asked to be accommodated and didn't receive satisfactory accommodation according to them. So it's essentially who were the tenants that were complaining and what were they complaining about. And we've also laid out specifically complaints about anti-Black racism, how those were resolved, and whether or not the Center for Advancing the Interests of Black People was involved in the investigation and the resolution of the complaint, which they were in, I think, all but one of the anti-Black racism complaints. So it's a high-level summary. With that context, happy to answer any questions about the report or any questions about sort of the past year in dealing with tenant human rights complaints.
Thank you for that. It's good that you're bringing this forward as an update to us. Comments or questions from committee members?
So I noticed in the report that there is a lot of complaints in regards to disabilities. So I'm curious to know what are the, I guess, the major or the main themes of complaints when it comes to people who are disabled, just because I know that, there's some Toronto community housing infrastructures that are usually very old, and sometimes they can accommodate people who might have physical disabilities to get from their unit to outside, etc. So I'm kind of curious on what exactly are you seeing when it comes to the disability complaints, and how are we finding some solutions about that?
Certainly, happy to answer that. Without going into too much detail to not reveal any confidential information, so I would say, and it is a definite trend, right? So we've received approximately 90 complaints, and approximately half of those, at least one of the grounds that the tenant has made the complaint on is disability. A lot of tenants who apply for transfers are applying on the basis that the unit does not accommodate them on the basis of their disability. So that is one of the areas definitely that we see a lot of complaints to do with disability. Again, a lot of accommodation requests. I would say the vast majority of accommodation requests. So a tenant asking for some sort of a modification in their unit, or some sort of a modification in how we provide customer service to them, such as for asking for communication over email because they have a sight disability. A lot of those kind of requests, or the vast majority of those requests, are on the basis of disability. So it's a mixed bag. It's also a mixed bag between people who have mental health disabilities and need accommodations for those reasons. Perhaps they need to be transferred out of their unit for some reason to do with a mental health disability, and tenants who have physical disabilities, such as a sight disability, or a disability that means they can no longer live in a townhouse because they have a mobility issue. So yeah, I would say transfers, requesting physical changes to units, and then, customer service standards. So needing us to interact with them in a certain way to accommodate their disability.
So through the chair, I'd also like to build on that. So through our updated tenant transfer policy coming to the Tenant Community Services Committee in April, we are looking at modifying some of our entry points for our tenant transfer program that allows for more flexibility. So right now our program is fairly stringent on documentation to demonstrate disabilities and requirements for transfers. And so we're looking at a more flexible process to allow for tenants to work with us to qualify and then subsequently get transfers. And so we're working actively with Katie and the human rights team to address that. So we're hoping that will really move us along.
Very good. Sean, yes.
Yeah, so through the chair, I just wanted to add that I think this is essentially how this process is supposed to work, right? Because we know that there will be challenges with respect to the complaints we receive and things that have to be remedied. But what I like to see is where we identify things that might be systemic or that might be repeated, that we have an opportunity to turn that back and look at our policies and say, can we do a better job at some of these things? And that's where I think this is just starting to happen now around, we've identified half of these complaints are coming through under these grounds. We have some capacity to address it with respect to things like our transfer policy and other things. So we're starting to get the wheels turning on those kinds of changes. So I think it's a good story.
Very good. And I hope our tenants online are listening and will give you feedback.
I'm sure.
Yes, Dara.
And I would just add, we continue to discuss this process of reporting up through the committee to the board with the Ombudsman, who had recommendations in their report around the need for us to establish KPIs. And so, as I think I said at the beginning of the presentation, this is our first iteration of this document. Our ongoing discussions with the Ombudsman will inform what this report looks like in coming years.
Thank you. And for folks, KPI, key performance indicators, how the organization will measure itself against its goals, stated goals. Okay, motion to receive. Thank you, Vanita. Thank you, Gord. All in favor, yay, yay. Appreciate it. Okay, Catherine, you're up. Deputation, we're moving to item number 11, policy, tenants policy, and Catherine has a deputation. It's always good to have you with us.
Oh, yes, thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Chair Douglas. Welcome to committee members, staff, and those watching online. I did want to speak to this deputation policy for stakeholders in terms of the update. As someone who's been advocating to review and revise this deputation policy for the past years, I'm really pleased to see we're getting closer to that actually coming to life. We know that it is tenants who are the primary stakeholders making deputations. And I had previously advocated for tenants who regularly depute and some that don't to be included in the consultation process around this policy. And they were subsequently consulted in the deputation and revising the deputation policy itself. However, tenants were not consulted in creating the educational materials for the website materials outlined in this report. It is a great disservice to tenants who have been deputing in good faith for years to exclude them when, for the first time in Toronto Community Housing's history, we are actually creating educational materials on the deputation policy. It is clear that governance intended that these materials would be a one-size-fits-all stakeholders groups. Unfortunately, but we specifically asked for tenant educational materials. By excluding tenants, we have produced materials, much like the previous deputation policy, written in corporate speak that are not tenant-friendly or appealing to tenants. The email distribution list, the website link is evasive. It says to sign up to learn more about deputations, the board, and committees. It should simply state, sign up to receive email notifications of upcoming board and committee meetings. I tested the link and signed up. I did not receive any acknowledgement or notification of upcoming meetings. Perhaps the system is not live just yet. As tenants who regularly depute, we understand, we get it. We know how daunting it can be to make a deputation, especially for first-timers or where English is a second language. The tenants being consulted, more emphasis would have been made to ensure it was tenant-friendly and appealing by making it easier to understand and openly encouraging more tenants to be seen and to be heard on board decisions that affect their lives. Under next steps, governance will consult with TAC regarding the revisions. However, it would also be considerate to circle back with the tenant deputants who participated in the earlier consultation and recommended many of the changes. Language in the shareholders agreement indicates whether it's a corporate policy or procedure or a change in services. It clearly indicates that Toronto Community Housing will consult with tenants. I understand the communications staff are working on some additional materials and will reach out to a couple of tenants, and I have confidence in them that they will do that. But there is much more work to be done. The whole purpose of creating educational materials was to create tenant awareness of the deputation policy and procedures, to empower tenants to use their voice to advocate for their communities. I am asking the governance committee to direct management to undertake the following 5 actions. I'll speak slowly. 1, create a tenant staff working group to undertake the following. 2, review any new or existing tenant educational materials. 3, design a tenant deputation template to assist tenants on how to prepare and present a deputation. 4, to create a permanent deputation community poster. And number 5, promote tenant information sessions across the regions. I want this to be successful, and I support you 100%. So please support and consider these recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Comments, Dara?
So I will say we're consistent. I think we remain open to feedback from any tenants who are interested in supporting the work that we're doing in relation to our changes that we're implementing to the deputation policy and the educational materials that we're producing to assist tenants to understand how to take advantage of that process. I can commit to the committee that I will personally reach out to Ms. Wilkinson and other tenants who have contributed to the process in the past to get their feedback. Happy to have the feedback as well on the educational materials that we've got on the website and to get more feedback on that. This is intended to be a conversation with tenants about the process. I will say, I think that the communications team within TCHC has done an admirable job in getting material up on the website quickly, and so I appreciate the work that's been done there. And if there's more feedback that we can receive from tenants on what's there and how we can improve it, make it more accessible to tenants, happy to have that input.
Very good, and I think the recommendation coming from Catherine is that it be a formal process. Well, as formal as.
Yeah, it certainly will strike a process that will include tenants who have communicated to us in the past an interest in participating in this to make sure that we get their input. Absolutely.
And any comment on the link that Catherine talked about? I'm assuming it hasn't gone live yet. Barb?
Through the chair, I will take that back to the team and check on to see what happened there.
Good. Thank you so much, Catherine. Truly appreciate you and your interest, always.
Thank you so much, Chair Douglas.
You're very welcome. Have a great day.
You too.
Any other comments from committee members? Seeing none, motion to receive the report. Bonita, Gord, all in favor, yay, yay. Thank you. Okay, we're speeding along. AGM process. Dara.
So just at a high level, this report outlines the process through which we conduct the annual general meeting of the shareholder and of TCHC as shareholder of its subsidiary corporations. Our annual general meeting is conducted in the form of a report that goes to City Council. It'll come to City Council later this year. And for our subsidiary corporations, we comply with our obligation to hold an annual general meeting through either a meeting of the board or a resolution that is adopted by the board once the financial statements are prepared. This is an annual process that we undertake of providing information about that, how that process will work, and the matters that we'll bring forward to council at that time in conjunction with the annual general meeting. One slight difference this year from last year's version of the report. I understand that this is the final year that KPMG has been appointed by the city as auditor, and so the report recommends simply that council appoint an auditor for 2025 rather than identifying who that should be. Presumably the city will go through that process of selecting a new auditor, and this report just makes sure that the process is followed once that decision is made.
Good. Comments or questions? Yes?
Through the chair, just a quick clarification. On the list of corporations, we don't show our PEI, and I'm wondering if it has maybe a different year end or it bundles under something, but I didn't see it there, and that was my only question.
So the subsidiaries, I think that we've identified in the report of the development subsidiaries. We do have a more regular meetings with the RPEI board, but I'll follow up on that question and get back to you.
We're using acronyms again, people.
Sorry, annual general meeting.
Thank you.
And RPEI is the Regent Park Energy Incorporated subsidiary.
Merci beaucoup. Okay, anyone else? Not seeing, Marcel, did I just see your hand? No? Okay. So I need a motion to approve the annual general meeting process as set out in report GCHRC 2514 and to recommend its approval to the board. Marcel, thank you. Seconder, Ziva, thank you. All in favor, yay, yay. We're just speeding along. I think that's it. Have we come to the end of our meeting?
So we'll go back to in-camera.
Camera, yeah. So thank you, tenants and others who joined us online. Great meeting. We're heading back into our in-camera meeting. Have a great day. Thank you.
Switch to